Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for waiting. We're going to go ahead and start. I think there are still some people trying to get in, but that's okay. We'll just start anyways. First, I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us today. I know that we have participants from multiple regions in the world. I think I saw some people from Asia. We definitely have people coming in from the UK, of course, people in the US as well. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time zone you're in. My name is Tweevy, and I'm head of marketing at Guidebook. Joining me today to present is my colleague Jack, who is Guidebook's manager of client success and growth, and he'll be responding to questions at the end. We're really excited that you've joined us today.
Hey, my name's Jack. I'm the manager of client success and growth here at Guidebook. I'm excited to answer your questions after Tweevy's run through the slides.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jack. All right, so today's guide talk is going to be split into two different sections. In case you wanted to see our faces, that's me and that's Jack right there. But today's guide talk is going to be split into two sections. We'll first be discussing the global industry shift from in-person events to virtual events, and then we'll close with an open Q&A and discussion portion. For those of you on the call, just note that I'm muting everybody until the very end, but if you have any questions throughout the presentation or if something comes up that we haven't addressed, please go ahead and use the chat feature that's located at the bottom of the screen to send them in. We're going to compile a list of the questions, and then we'll get to them after the end of the presentation, and then we'll also be addressing questions that were sent in prior to the session. So I'll be doing the first portion, and then Jack will be moderating and answering questions at the very end. All right, so again, the main topic of today's guide talk is the shift to virtual events and the benefits that come with them. So I'll be discussing some of the current trends and reasons to go virtual, and then I'll cover some of Guidebook's tips and tricks for having a successful virtual event and how mobile can help you do that. So I'm sure you've seen, but in recent days, we've seen some of the largest conferences and summits in the world switch to virtual events. For example, large companies like Microsoft, Google, and even presidential candidates have switched formats in light of COVID-19. A huge event, South by Southwest in the US, is a fairly large event that was canceled this year. The Olympics in Japan were postponed, and in many places, having meetings at this time is considered illegal. And while this big industry shift to virtual has been happening recently, at least much more noticeably, this is actually nothing new. Virtual events have existed for quite some time now, and Guidebook has been supporting clients with this type of event format for a number of years. Virtual events are valuable alternatives to large and small events, and we've listed a few of the ways in the slides here. So the first reason, virtual events are a safe way to connect with your audience given the current global pandemic. This is obviously at the forefront of everyone's minds, so of course, this is the main reason to go virtual during this time. But in addition to this, there are also many other reasons why virtual events are a valuable method for connecting with audiences, which leads me to the second point, which is virtual events enable hosts to reach a wider audience than with physical events. While there may have been individuals who couldn't attend your physical event due to location or other logistics, with a virtual event, travel is not an issue. And for organizers, that means you can invite those individuals you might not have expected to otherwise join. And then for attendees, that means that they now have more events that they can join. And then the last main reason is that virtual events help organizations save money on many events-related expenses. So for example, venue, catering, design, and decor, all of those things add up, but you don't need to spend money on these things because now the event has shifted virtually. You'll still need to format the event slightly differently, but many of these logistics, they just don't cost money. And if they do, the overall cost for virtual events is nowhere close to in-person events. So depending on who you speak to, there are a variety of reasons why you should go virtual. And I've only listed a few of them here, but we think that these are some of the more important ones. So now that we've briefly touched on that, here are some of our tips and tricks for going virtual. The first tip, rework your format. So what works for live events may not work for virtual events. You may have to incorporate additional breaks into your program or break up sessions into smaller chunks just to account for your audience's needs. Additionally, if you're converting a multi-day event into a virtual event, you may want to think about hosting a series of virtual events. This is an opportunity to extend your activities, and it saves attendees from content overload. A really good example of this is actually our GuideTalk series. We, in the email that you received, I'm sure you saw that we have 3 distinct topics. Today's event is about virtual events. And then next week, we have 2 sessions, one about mobile apps in support of remote work. And then the third one is mobile apps in support of digital higher education. And the thing is, we could have lumped them all into one topic today because the underlying theme is virtual. But to be honest, we would have lost many of you within like after the first 15 minutes. And so it's just too much information to pack into one day. So we decided to break them up into individual sections, which just makes them more digestible and appealing to our viewers. Tip number 2, pick the right technology. From webinar to video platforms to supplementary technology to social media. There's a wide range of options for you to host your virtual event. And if you've been searching online for some of these platforms, I'm sure that it can seem a little bit overwhelming. I will tell you now, it was really overwhelming for me as well, because there's just so much content online. But what's really important is that you find the right platform that works for you and for your audience. So open platforms like Facebook Live and YouTube Live are great options if you're looking to broadcast your event openly, and they're also perfect if you're on a limited budget. Platforms like Zoom, GoToMeeting, and GetResponse are webinar platforms created to handle large audiences and facilitate audience questions. For example, right now in this meeting, we have about 287 people, and there's a way for us to have questions sent in at the very bottom. So this is an example of like those types of webinar platforms. These platforms do require a subscription to use the service, but they can really up the virtual event experience because you can also record them. You can share them later for your attendees if someone hasn't been able to make it. And here's like a fun tip. Even though your speakers won't be able to engage with your audience in person, they can use platforms like Zoom to set things like virtual backgrounds and make the experience more fun. It's an element that's not traditionally available with an in-person event, but it can be helpful in captivating an audience online. Unfortunately, I do not have a virtual background today, but that's all right. And just like with any live event, virtual events benefit from supplementary event tech. So for example, a mobile app. An event app is just as useful during a virtual event as it is during a live event. And so features like polls, surveys, and chat keep attendees involved. You can use event apps to house event materials. You can use them to send updates via push notifications and just many other things. Social media can also be valuable during virtual events as well. Encourage your attendees to tweet out their takeaways or snap selfies of themselves enjoying speaker sessions. As much as it is valuable feedback for you, it keeps your attendees engaged and active participants. And these are all things that you can do with the mobile app. Mobile apps also empower networking capabilities so that attendees will get more than just information in their experience, and they can broaden their professional horizons. So for example, unlike an in-person event where people can miss each other or miss sessions, housing most of the audience engagement in your mobile app will enable your audience to get more from your event and from each other, which is 100% a win. Tip number 3, choose engaging speakers that can captivate your audience even if they're online. I'm sure you know how difficult maintaining audience attention can be even in person, but it's even more difficult during a virtual event. I'm sure many of you have faced this before because I certainly have, but working from home and tuning in definitely has its challenges. There are so many distractions. As an organizer, you're battling against more elements than you would with a dedicated live audience, which is why it's so important to choose speakers who are able to captivate an audience online. a mobile app is a really great way to do this, to create an engaging experience that is more interactive and fun for your audience. So for example, live polls or surveys are a great way to engage with your audience. And here's like a fun behind the scenes tip about polls and surveys. So during an in-person event, it actually takes more work logistically to get this all set up, right? You have a speaker who is doing a poll, but you have someone who's behind the scenes who's making sure that it's running properly. You have to get that information to them. But during your virtual event, literally everyone is in front of their computers, which makes it so much easier to gain access to poll results and survey responses. So it takes out some of like that nitty gritty, just work that you would otherwise have to do during an in-person event. And then the last thing about choosing an engaging speaker is that a virtual event is a great time for you to get the perfect speaker that you've always wanted, but you just couldn't make work because of timing on dates and travel. Since speakers and even attendees don't have to be physically present, this is a really great opportunity for you to widen your speaker search, which not only opens up more opportunities for you to diversify your speaker selection and lineup, but it also makes it easier to captivate a larger audience because you can cater to more topics and to just more general interests. Tip number 4. Get more out of your sponsors and virtual exhibitors by personalizing their sponsorship packages and enabling them to generate more leads for their business. So compared to a show where foot traffic is unpredictable, virtual sponsorships are much more targeted in terms of audience, and you can create specific opportunities for exhibitors and sponsors to connect with attendees while retaining their own ROI from your audience. And this is because the ability to generate qualified leads directly from your office or home without having to run up expensive travel bills also makes virtual events extremely attractive for exhibitors. These lower barriers to entry means that virtual events, especially ones that have an exhibit component, attract more of a diverse group of exhibitors and attendees, creating a massive online audience for companies to share their innovations with. If you're using a mobile app, you'll also be able to share metrics with your sponsors, from how many times someone viewed a sponsorship or exhibitor listing to how many times someone clicked on a banner ad. These are all things that can be reported to your sponsors and exhibitors, making it much easier for them to gauge performance and determine how much return they've received from your event. Unlike an in-person event where attendees can either check out a booth as they're walking through the exhibit hall, or view information about the exhibitor on the mobile app, or maybe a combination of both, virtual events creates pretty much just one way for people to interact with your exhibitors for your event, which then helps you provide meaningful insight on popularity and traffic and performance. And all of these components can be built into your sponsorship or exhibitor packages. And lastly, tip number 5, optimize your content for virtual to empower your audience to follow along. So in order to keep your attendees engaged, your content needs to be top-notch. So supporting presentations, graphics, and videos will help keep your attendees engaged throughout your virtual event. Empower your audience to follow along with your content or supplementary content. So make sure your presentations, your slides, videos, they're all viewable by your audience. And a lot of times this means optimizing your content for smaller computer screens rather than large displays. I'm sure some of you guys have seen this, but occasionally, what looks good on your desktop will not look good on your mobile app. So you have to make sure that you're optimizing your content. With a mobile app, you can also provide materials for your attendees to view at their own pace. And it's all possible with a mobile app. With Guidebook, you can load your documents ahead of the virtual event, and then attendees can flip through the materials as they watch the meeting. With a mobile app, you can also drive more engagement with your content by including live polls, surveys, those two are really popular, QR, scavenger hunts, or even networking. And these mobile app features help make your sessions just much more interactive. So while attendees are not physically present, they'll still be able to engage with you as the organizer, with other attendees and with speakers and other exhibitors and sponsors. These mobile features that are used are a great way for organizers to also gather data about what content is resonating with their attendees and see areas that can be improved, removed, or kept for the following year. So in general, a mobile app is a really great way for you to supplement your virtual event. as you can see throughout all of like these tips, a big theme is engagement and being interactive with your audience, which is how we think a mobile app should act in support of a virtual event. And that's it. So we're going to actually transition to the Q&A section. I saw a lot of questions come in, and we've been compiling them, and we'll also speak about the ones that came in prior to today. So I'm going to actually turn this over to Jack now. Okay, Jack.
Cool. Thanks, Stevie. I hope everyone enjoyed that. We've got a couple of questions, but please keep them coming in. We'll get to those. So number one is there a web version to watch live streams from, and what is the best way to set this up rather than watching from the app? So with Guidebook, we have a web version called a cover page. This is set up initially as a promotional page. So you can use this to send a URL to any of your users, and they can directly download the app from there. In this page, you can also link a selection of your features. So you can have highlights of your sessions, you can have highlights of your list features. And within those sessions and list features, you can link straight to the web where you're hosting your live streams, your Zoom talks, or anything else. So you can use web alongside mobile. We are mobile first, but the cover page is a great great resource for you for promotion as well as linking online. Question number two, are there specific webinar or video platforms that work better with Guidebook than others? Whenever you're thinking of linking through to the mobile app, you should always think about mobile optimization. As Phoebe mentioned in the slides, when you're picking anything, you should always think mobile first, especially if you're using an app. If I use a website on my mobile device and it doesn't work very well on mobile, I'm so quick to like leave the website or not use that product. So make sure that anything you use is mobile optimized. In terms of like webinars or video platforms, when you link them to Guidebook, they do open up a website, and you can open it in an iframe within the app, or you can select a toggle which opens the browser on your mobile device. So when doing so, you need to make sure that it's mobile optimized, because it will be a much better end-to-end user journey. Anything that works on mobile will work within Guidebook and within your app. So just make sure when you're selecting something that they are mobile first, mobile optimized. Okay, I've got a long question here. I'm just going to read it before I speak it out. Okay, so we've got one here that says, we went virtual 2 weeks ago with Guidebook as our app. One of the challenges was that the desktop version of the app doesn't allow for linking of valuation surveys. So at the last minute, I had to scramble something to get SurveyMonkey that would work for this purpose. Any plans on this, and how many people are using computers for virtual event content? Yeah, great comment there. So our cover page product is getting worked on at the moment because of the need for virtual events. So we will be adding other capability there. I'm not sure if surveys is coming. And what we can do is we can confirm this question after when we send out the slides. But basically, we are a mobile first company. And we do work with other surveys. So where we do have an in-house survey product, you can use SurveyMonkey or any other survey product that you have in our app. Just like I mentioned with the webinars, you can link your survey that is mobile optimized, hopefully, into the app. It opens in the iframe. Your users can fill it out as long as they have a connection via Wi-Fi or data, and they can fill out the survey there, or you can then link it to the website. And you can then link that website link into the cover page. So then you're covered from all bases. And survey products, people like SurveyMonkey, they specialize in surveys. So if you are looking for a pretty extensive survey product, they're probably going to be better than ours eventually, because we specialize in mobile apps with a survey product. Your account manager or whoever you're working with, Guidebook, or our support team can help you with establishing what product is best for you. So please reach out to them if you have questions on this. Do you have resources for creating virtual sponsor or exhibitor packages? What options are available in Guidebook? This is a great question, and one that comes up quite a lot with me, especially for virtual events. So I'm just gonna quickly touch on it just because I opened it up. You do have sponsor packages, just for anyone else that's wondering this. The sponsor packages work exactly the same in terms of the products that you have. You know, and what I mean by exactly the same is exactly the same as if you're running an event in person. So you have the options for banner ads, you have the options for using your splash page as the app opens, and lots of different menu items listing sponsors. And the best thing about using mobile in this instance is that you can send factual information back to your sponsor partners about what's been clicked on and how many impressions they've had. Again, with this, if you have more questions on sponsors, please get in touch with your account manager or support, and we can send you our sponsor pack. There are instances where people using Guidebook have created a revenue stream from using sponsors. So make sure that when you're working with your sponsorship partners, they know the value of using mobile. So I've got one here that says, can Guidebook app be set up to display non-sequential days, such as 4 consecutive Fridays? Absolutely. You can set up your app to be over any amount of days. When you put it in, you would create the app, you know, as a 4-week period. If it was, in this example, I've been asked, such as 4 consecutive Fridays. You would need to set the dates as like 4 weeks there, but then you can just set up your schedule to have those 4 days with the sessions on those 4 days. I'd love to see some tips on virtual facilitation techniques, how to generate engagement and ways of getting users contributing content as well as receiving plenary content. Can you help me, please? So in terms of engagement, our advice is always to use the networking features. So generating engagement can come from our interact feed, like a social feed, the networking features we have, so one-to-one messenger and the photos. So, you know, you could run, for example, a selfie competition, and the winner is the winner with the most likes or comments on their photo in the interact feed. You can also run scavenger hunts. So you could use our QR code scanner for those. And those could be, you know, between different sessions. So scanning something online once they've finished using a virtual session. So you can see, you know, how many people are coming to each sessions. And also using the notifications. I think, you know, engagement for virtual events, as Tweedy mentioned, is very tough. So making sure that you're staying on top of notifications, making sure that you're emailing your users to share the value add of the app is important. And keeping those notifications and posts that you make on the feeds nice and informal and friendly, so that people don't think that they're, you know, on something that is too formal or too scary for users. Keeping it nice and friendly. Could you share an example of QR code scavenger hunts? We can share this afterwards, or you can write into support@guidebook.com. That's probably the best way. They are the guys that create the QR code scavenger hunts. So what I would suggest is send an email, just again to support@guidebook.com, and they can talk you through some articles on how to create those. So basically, I've got one question here that says, are the presenters able to demonstrate on screen the Guidebook features you're describing? In this case, what we'd like to do is divert you to a demo. So if you could get in touch after, or one of the guys might have grabbed you on the chat. What we can do is set up a demo. You know, those can be between 15 minutes to 45 minutes, depending on what you're looking to do. We can run through those features with you on a more personal basis. That way we can hear about your event and make it nice and personal to you. And you can ask, you know, plenty more questions. Our stakeholders tend to be older and less tech savvy. The idea of going to a virtual meeting from a traditional networking heavy event is terrifying for them. Suggestions? I love this type of question. We get it all the time. And what I would say is, please don't be scared. people are having to adapt more than ever these days, and communication is more important than ever. So it's a good time to get this kind of stakeholder group to move to virtual, to move to tech. What I would think that you'll find, and what I've seen before, is that once this kind of generation or this kind of group that you have starts using and starts understanding the mobile technology and starts seeing the positives, they then actually become power users. I've seen it so many times where this question gets asked at the start of someone's guidebook journey, and then they come back to me and say, our users loved it, they saw the value so much, and actually used and engaged with the product loads. So yeah, what I would say is make sure they know the value. If you think about why you use apps and what you do every day, why you keep coming back to a good app, you can then think and put yourself in the user's shoes to make sure you're selling to them, and explaining to them what is valuable and why it should be used, rather than we've got an app, and it's got some information in it. Really think about how they're going to get value from there. Can you link a YouTube playlist via the YouTube tab, or can you only link the YouTube channel? So as long as you have a specific URL, you can link anything. So if your YouTube playlist has a specific URL, which I should think it does, you can link that into the app or into the guide. Is it possible to have our speakers present and record ahead of time, while also allowing attendees to ask questions during the playback? This might allow us to troubleshoot any issues with the presentation and reduce chaos for virtual conference type of event. So yeah, I imagine that you can record before and then link to your video online. The thing you have to think about here is when you're live streaming or recording video, that is outside of Guidebook. So what you're doing in this instance is linking to an online video streaming service. So as long as you can control the pausing and recording via that, you can link it into Guidebook. Suggestions for the future. It would have been great if you'd integrated the app into this presentation to show some ways it could be used. Yeah, great comment there. This is the first one of these virtual events that we've done. So any of your feedback that comes out, please keep them coming. And if you want to see more, please get in touch for a demo, because we can run through plenty of other case studies via that demo. My group has talked about selling push notifications to our sponsors as a way to generate more revenue for the app. This one's tricky. What you want to make sure is that you're not spamming your users and that they then turn off their notifications. That is always in the control of your user. They don't have to allow the notifications on their phone. So be careful if you're going to do this. Keep it minimal, maybe keep it only towards a title sponsor, and make sure you don't spam, because the risk of doing that, as I said, is that your users will turn the notifications off. Can I stream a webinar on a service like WebEx within Guidebook? If so, what would be the advantage of doing so? Would users be able to use Guidebook as a resource in real time? Do you think that would enhance the experience versus just streaming directly from WebEx and keeping Guidebook on a separate standalone? What I say here is the mobile phone of your users is always going to be ever present. So a virtual event can be across multiple platforms and ultimately should be. You want to keep the mobile device as part of the engagement. So if you are streaming via desktop, which is probably a better experience than streaming on mobile if they are sitting at home and have a desktop in front of them, keep the mobile phone as part of the engagement rather than part of the distraction. So have polling going through the mobile device, have question asking going through the mobile device. That way you're using Guidebook alongside a WebEx, but still have the WebEx link if they want to live stream on their mobile device, if they are unable to stream via their computer. In this instance, you're kind of asking, is it better to stream on mobile? I think that's a preference of the user. I would say that you should use the app alongside streaming, but still offer it within the app. We will be doing many concurrent sessions in a one-day event, 200 plus 10-minute talks in 6 different rooms. Will concurrent videos be supported? So yeah, you can have as many links and as many sessions in your Guidebook app as you need. You can split your sessions up into different tracks. So your tracks could be those 6 different rooms, and then or even like 10 different subjects, and the users can find them by doing that. You can have as many web links in there as you like, and because you're not uploading those videos or anything natively to the app, you don't need to worry about the space it's taking up on the phone. They'll just be taking those videos straight offline. So what I mean is they're streaming them straight from the internet rather than offline. So in this instance, I would say you've got plenty of support there with the schedule and the way that we can create that for you. And you shouldn't worry about a large amount of sessions going on throughout the day. Regarding older users, do you offer boilerplate hand-holding virtual trainings, or is this something we need to pay for to do ourselves? So with our full plan, you'll get a dedicated account manager, and also you have full access to our support team. So please don't worry that once you purchase, we leave you to your own devices. Guidebook is a DIY platform, but we want to make sure that you get the best out of our platform as possible. So we can hold demos, as I've mentioned, one-to-one with you guys. And also our support team are active around the clock. They have a maximum of a 30-minute reply time, and they can send you links directly to our support website, which has plenty of videos, GIFs, images, and articles about loads of different features. So there's nothing on there that isn't covered. So please don't be afraid that we'll just leave you and not support you, because ultimately we want you to have the best experience possible from using Guidebook. I would like to see how others use Guidebook. That way it would give me more ideas for my event. Great question here. And I'm really glad to hear that you are interested in hearing about other case studies. We host a lot of these case studies on our blog, and in the demos, we'll run through live case studies with you. We'll have a simulator on the screen so we can show you how apps work. We can make sure we have specific case studies for your use case and go through things that are relevant to you. So if you'd like to set up a demo again, please get in touch. We'll share how to get in touch with us after when we share the slides. Is it possible to include a link for remote audience participation in the meeting program? Absolutely. You can link anything to any website in the app. Is it possible to create sub-events in the schedule so users can register for a specific sub-event happening within a more general event? This is a great question. The way I would do this is by setting up the tracks that I mentioned earlier. So what you could do is have a folder for your general event with a track within that for your sub-events. You can create, as I said earlier, as many sessions that you like. They can be as short or as long as you like. So you can definitely create this and solve this problem. You can also link anything within the guide. So if you want to link a session to a speaker, you can do that. If you want to link a session to a session, you can do that. So when you're building that, make sure you ask the question to, again, our support team, but you can create a fairly extensive schedule with lots of different subsections. Is the content only available to those who purchase virtual and/or hybrid option? So when you download a Guidebook as a user and you have access to a guide, so a guide is a product for an event, you would have access to everything in there. You don't purchase the app, and you would get access to all of the features. Currently, there's no way to gate content. If this question is more towards the back end, when you purchase, you have as many users as you like in the back end, and you can just invite your team to help you build. And we do have tiered security options, so you are in control of your users. Is it possible to stream a webinar within Guidebook rather than switching to another app or platform? Yes, as long as your streaming service has a distinct URL and you can stream that from the web. One more here. Is it possible to have translation and closed captioning? So in terms of translation, you can enter any language into Guidebook because the content that you enter is your own. Our product supports around 25 languages for the native text, and you can find those languages listed on the support website. In terms of closed captioning, we follow the Apple and Google regulations for accessibility. Sorry, that was hard to get out. So you are covered in terms of those. If the same user downloads both the mobile app and desktop version, does that count as 2 downloads? So no, the mobile download is the only one that's tracked, and it's tracked on a device level. So even if the user downloads, deletes, and re-downloads, you're fine. You're not going to get charged twice. The web version doesn't count as a download. Pretty sure we are towards the end. I'm just going to check if we've got any others. 1 second, guys. And if I've missed your question, sorry, I had a long list, so I might have skipped it over. What we'll do is after this, we will send out the questions with answers, so you've got those. And of course, you can always get in touch if you've got other questions. Cool, I think we're done. I'm going to just hand back to Tweety to finish things off. It's been great to answer these questions, and thanks so much, guys, for joining. It's great to see all of you interested in Guidebook and using us for your virtual events.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. This is the very first part of our GuideTalk series. We've gotten a lot of really great feedback, which the team will definitely, take back, and we'll see if we can come up with some more GuideTalks. I see on here that there is a lot of people who are requesting just some more use cases or maybe even a demo. Like Jack mentioned, we would love to hop on a call with you. It makes it a little bit easier for us to give you more of a personalized demo just because everybody's instance is just a little bit different. But, I hear you loud and clear. We can definitely, follow up with examples post this webinar to, just give you some access to resources or just, get you directed to the right person. And we've also just gotten some really great ideas for future guide talks. For example, maybe, one that just has use cases for the entire time. So thank you very much for joining today. If you have any additional questions, please go ahead and I'm actually going to close out this session in just 1 minute. So I think that'll not let you post any more questions in the chat. But if you have any additional questions, you can go ahead and respond to the email invitation that you received. That does actually get seen by our team members. So you can send an email directly to hello@Guidebook, or if you have an account manager, feel free to send it their way. Thank you again for joining. Our next Guide Talk is next week. We hope that some of you will join us next week as well. And please keep an eye out for a follow-up email from us. Thank you, everyone.